the For All the Saints podcast. And I'm delighted to have with me some amazing local church members in Utah. And we're going to discuss General Conference as we do after every General Conference. We've done it in Amsterdam, we've done it in Madrid, we've done it in Northern England and London. And now we're in the motherland, Utah. So welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
This
Thanks,
is exciting. Let's go around and we'll do some introductions first because we want to get to know you and your story. Tell us. I'm not going to get you to do like 2 truths and 1 lie, but
Make it fun.
Yeah, come on.
What was the
about
breakfast
you
one, right?
That's asking people to tell what they had for breakfast is a good way to check audio. So that's what I was saying before.
My sister's been trying to get me to try different American things, and so far, disgusting.
Like, what have you been trying?
What did you have?
She got me to have a McGriddle.
McGriddles are great.
It was gross. It was absolutely.
I'm with Ben on this.
It's not
I don't
beans
like
and toast.
McGriddles at all.
That's the one with the pancake buns, right? Because there's also the
with the maple syrup
McMuffin.
infused.
There's also McMuffin. Did you try that?
Sausage,
We have those in the
McMuffin.
UK, and I loved that. They got my order wrong the first time, so I went back to get a McGriddle, and I wish I hadn't.
And you wish you hadn't.
The muffin was so much nicer.
Kept the order.
We actually
like them?
Yeah, they're great.
we like those so much that we had homemade ones for dinner last week. My wife makes
Homemade
No,
McGriddles.
Homemade
we make
McGriddles.
Oh, we make
I think a
like
homemade
egg
one
McMuffins.
would probably be
Yeah.
okay. I would say, but the McDonald's
What, too greasy? Like, what's the problem?
the sweet and the savory is not okay.
What, so you don't
But
put
you guys
like
do this all the
maple
time. You do
syrup
the sweet
on your
potato
sausage?
with marshmallows.
Yeah.
That's
the best.
donuts and bacon.
It's the best.
Oh no,
Sweet savory. It's a good
Hey, you have to
combo.
tell everyone what your typical breakfast is. We know what it
Yeah.
is. It's your Heinz beans.
it's
beans
full
on
English.
toast,
It's about 14
sauces,
different elements.
tomatoes, and
And you die afterwards. But it's all savory.
yeah.
No, the other thing was this morning, she was trying to get us to get a Chick-fil-A breakfast. So last morning before we fly out, we did it. I got a burrito, and I took
Nice.
1 bite and said no.
Really?
Chick-fil-A breakfast
don't
is
have a-
good.
You don't have a refined palate like the rest of us.
No.
Yeah,
Just
that's
weird
exactly
stuff.
how I would describe our palate.
I think it's because I've been eating so much fast food out here, though.
Yeah.
Dairy Queen, Swig, Crumble, everything.
Yeah, you can't wait to get back home.
I know, I want a home-cooked meal.
Yeah.
But anyway, introductions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Why don't we go this way? Ray?
Yeah. I'm Brett Horrocks. I'm a husband, father of 4. Grew up all 30 years of my life in Utah. Just super excited to be here. Right now I work with the priests. I have 30 priests in my ward.
Wow.
That's a lot.
They're the greatest thing. It's honestly the best calling in the world, though. Like, obviously the youth are the future and the young men are where it's at, but I really do have the best calling in the world. They're the coolest young men. So, but yeah, that's a little bit about me. Just grew up here. I had a little stink. I grew up in the church. You know, my dad was a bishop, all that. I left the church when I was 17, but came back when I was 23. So found the light again. But I was telling you guys, this is my first time ever doing content. I've done a lot of like business podcasts, a lot like that, but first ever content around religion. So it's a little bit new for me. I'm excited for it.
That's how we met. It was at a conference where I was bringing my boss, Chris Williamson, to the conference. It was amazing. It was great. Met so many cool people there, actually. Ben Kerr as well, who's been on the podcast.
Good dude.
Loads of people. So yeah, thanks for coming, Brett.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
My name is Sky Sorensen. I run an account called Sit Down with Sky. I have kind of a unique situation where I'm a Latter-day Saint who experiences same-sex attraction, but who's married to a woman, and we have 3 children. Our first passed away. He was born premature and passed away in 2019, and then we have 2 beautiful daughters. And my account is just kind of balancing the different complexities that come with that situation, and how you can choose to stay faithful in any sort of situation. But specifically, I speak to my situation because that's what I know, and it's good. That's the account that I run, and full time I work for an organization called Scripture Central, and I help produce a podcast called Let's Get Real with Stephen Jones. Stephen Jones is he used to be a seminary teacher. He was an actor and a comedian, and a really awesome guy. He has different guests on to have really cool gospel discussions and share their stories. And so I help do basically this, what we're doing here, but for that show.
Yeah. Thanks again for coming on, Sky.
Yeah.
Everyone's kind of links and whatnot will be in the description, but yeah, definitely do go check out Sky's stuff. It's amazing.
Hi, I'm Lynzi Clyde. I'm the host of the Why I Stay podcast, which started out as a ward history project for my ward in Boston.
Did it really?
Yeah. We lived in Boston for 7 years, and part of those 7 years was COVID. And the East Coast, probably similar to the UK, was shut down during COVID for a long, long time. And our ward was one where the Harvard Business School students often come to live. And at that point, they didn't know if they were, that September, fall acceptance, they didn't know if they were going to go back to in person. They were offering like potential hybrid if they were going to allow it. So we had a bunch of students coming in and nobody knew who each other was because we were having 1 hour of church over Zoom every week and otherwise no contact at all. And so they were like, Lynzi, will you write a ward newsletter? And I was like, no, that's not me at all. I said, but I could do a podcast because I had done a self-love podcast that I quit after a year because my podcast mentor told me, if you're going to podcast, find something you can talk about forever and ever and ever and ever. And so I just started. It was like the first time I ever experienced direct revelation. I put my fingers on the keyboard and the name of the podcast and the questions I should ask and everything just like literally flowed into this doc. And I just started interviewing them and putting them as like unlisted links on YouTube so that ward members could access it and preserve privacy. And then when we moved away in 22, the Lord said, make it a thing. And I was just like, all right. Reached out to a ton of people that I knew and everyone said no, like I'm not coming on your podcast.
Really?
Yes.
That's surprising.
I know. So many people ghosted me and also just straight up said no. But over time it's gained momentum and it's a small but mighty project that I like to use my spare time to help the Lord out if I can in my own small way. So.
And it's amazing. And I've been on, I was
you.
so
Yeah,
impressed
Ben.
with your organization because I remember I
Really?
recorded and then you're like, this will be released in like 6 months' time. I'm like, wow, you're really ahead of the game.
You're surprised. Like I was literally in my basement with the blinds like pulled down behind me I do have a nice Shure MV7 mic, but other than that, it's like so ghetto set up. So I'm glad you were impressed with my organization. That's very kind.
Certainly was. And you're from Boston?
So actually originally from Arizona.
Okay.
Met my husband here. We moved to Boston for work, and then now we're back. And we can get into this, but I did not think I was going to be happy moving back to Utah. Like after getting outside and just like meeting so many different people and seeing new places, I was just like, I don't want to go back. I want another new adventure. But it's actually been amazing. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And Isaac?
I'm Isaac Lauder. I'm from Utah as well, grown up here my whole life. I'm originally from northern Utah, a place called Mountain Green, if anyone's heard of it.
Sounds
It's kind of small. You know it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty small, but I like growing up in a small town. It was really nice. I'm recently married. Got married like
Congratulations.
3 months ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty exciting. And then, I just I do international freight brokerage. So I spoke
Oh.
Chinese on my mission and since have been working with someone that I taught on my mission, actually.
Where'd you serve?
In London. Yep.
Hey.
Yeah. So, served in London, spoke Mandarin. And then someone I taught on my mission, he's from China. We started working together. He never got baptized or anything, but we just stayed in contact, remained friends, and then Yeah, there's always a chance, right? There's always a chance. He actually wants to move to Utah, so maybe.
Yeah.
So we started doing that and working with manufacturers in China. So that's just kind of what I'm up to. I've been home from my mission like a year and a half, probably. So.
Oh, okay.
Big
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thanks
Thanks
you.
everyone. So the church in Utah gets a bad rap, I think, especially as I'm in a small town in England in the ward, and you kind of hear, the church in Utah, and some people would be like, I'd never move there. It's just
Tell us
churchy."
what you hear. I'd love to hear what you
Well,
hear.
you get the kind of
The vibe.
cultural stuff that comes over and is applied onto us. And actually, I think if you spent several weeks going to church in the UK, you'd think it was pretty boring, normal Christian church.
Sure.
And yet we kind of are labeled with all these things. So sometimes it's like, what are you doing in Utah that's making us look so weird over here? You do get that a little bit. But
Yeah.
I'd say also, I was asked on a podcast once, do I find it annoying that it is so Utah-centric and all of that. And I was like, no, I don't find it annoying that you get church leaders who, a lot of them are from Utah. I don't mind that at all. I think the Lord prepares people and puts them in the places where they need to be and all of that. So we don't have any grievances with it, but you do have those kind of cultural quirks. For example, the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives stars of that show came on the biggest breakfast show in the UK.
Oh, great. That's fantastic.
The 2 points that they shared was that Latter-day Saints drink soda every morning because they can't have coffee, and you have to go to BYU to be a Mormon husband. And it's like, why didn't those things? So,
I mean, some for sure will drink soda every morning.
Well, stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason, right? But
not everyone.
like I think it behooves each of us as rational human beings to understand that there are going to be outliers, and then also people who are kind of normal. I don't know.
And so with that in mind, though, with it getting this bad rap, I'd love to hear from each of you what your favorite thing is about being a church member in Utah locally. And you can expand on that too if you have other thoughts, but I want to get that. So whoever wants to go first on that.
Well, I mean, I can. So I started my mission in Oregon, so I didn't get... So I got like that side of Latter-day Saint culture, which is similar, but I would say also different. But it did open my eyes up to what Utah Latter-day Saint culture was like. And like you said, I think it does get a bad rap. I think because there is such a high density of members, you'll get more of every type, like every subcategory of members. You have those who are maybe like go-getters who will just jump at every opportunity to volunteer for a service opportunity, or if someone needs a meal. So you have that, but then you have more who are going to be just kind of coasting, or maybe even just more cultural in their worship, use the church as sort of like a cultural veneer, and then don't really believe the things that the church actually teaches. So I think that we have a higher density of each one. So because of that, it might be more obvious. It might be easier to hyper focus on the bad, like the negative stereotypes, like you were saying. But there is an equal, or I think probably more, there are more examples of good Latter-day Saints and good aspects of our culture. I think a big one is just how, and this is, universal, I think, being in the church, you're going to have this sort of community that you'll get anywhere else. But within Utah, there's I think a focus on like families, because the culture that we live in is very family focused. Mm-hmm. You're going to see that seep into, well, it probably goes the other way. It probably starts with the church, and then that seeps into the culture, being very family focused. There are parks around. There are things that you can do with families. I don't know. So just some initial thoughts there. I'm kind of rambling, so I'm going to let someone.
No. I think you raised a good point that I've noticed actually, is that say my brother is no longer a member of the church, no longer attends church, and I think if a stranger were to ask him, "Are you a Latter-day Saint or are you a Mormon?" he'd probably say no, but I used to be, kind of thing. Whereas I think my experience with people that I see online or on these TV shows, or people I speak to even in Ubers and whatnot, it's that, I am Mormon, I am Latter-day Saint, even though there's kind of no affiliation except for the fact that they were raised in that way, or that their family is. Right.
It's kind of like being Jewish sometimes, or Catholic.
Yeah,
people
or even
will
Christian
say,
in the UK.
Yeah. That like it's more of a culture or something that was passed down through your family, and like an identity, but not necessarily like your deeply held beliefs.
Yeah, like your inward religious belief.
Yeah.
It's true. Like in the UK especially, there's plenty of people that will say, "Oh, I'm a Christian," but definitely don't go to church.
Yeah, they haven't been to church in years.
Yeah, I haven't been to church in years, except for maybe like an even song on Christmas or something.
Yeah.
So, and I do think that Utah gets a bad rap, but I know so many wonderful members of the church here that just want to do their best. And so, like, people aren't perfect. We're going to make mistakes. Some people are going to do things that fall under a stereotype, and you might put your hand on your face and what are you thinking?
Yeah.
But there's so many good-hearted people that really just want to do their best and maybe sometimes make mistakes. But
Yeah, love that.
Yeah, just the only thing I'd input is the loudest is the one that's you're seeing, right? Like the secret lives of Mormon lives. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it's nice though. There's like a place for them at church too, right? It shouldn't just be extremists on either end.
yeah,
But I think that in Utah, you definitely get extremists on one side as well as extremists on the ex-Mormon side too.
yeah,
And I think that culture can kind of clash and be really loud, but it's not the norm, right? Like if you look at the normal Utah culture in the church, it's quite normal. But you're seeing the loud parts, which are usually on the opposite side of extremes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good point.
If you have a conversation with just your typical ladder, like something like this, but not being recorded, you're going to get something like this, where it's just a normal conversation, normal interaction between members of the church who share most beliefs, maybe not everything, well, certainly not everything, but we only see something go viral on Twitter or whatever it may be, and that it's easy to think that represents a bigger portion of Latter-day Saints than it actually does, when really it's just one thing happening in time and then everyone amplifying that thing, and I think it has a outsized impact on how we view the culture in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something I've really loved when you touched on it about families. When we moved here, we had our fourth child in Boston. We were living in 1,000 square feet and going to public school in the inner city because we didn't want to pay for private. Like my girls had never gone to preschool because it was $10,000 a year.
Wowzers.
So like coming here, it's so much easier to raise a family. Like it's so much easier. And people, when we found our house, one of the reasons why we knew it was the place for us is because every time we came to visit the house, there was just like a pack of wild animal kids, riding their bikes down the street and stuff like that. And it's kind of that like ideal 90s childhood can still exist in some places. And that's what we found here. And to echo everything that everyone's been saying, like as a female, I was worried about coming here and really feeling like if I didn't do breast augmentation or like Botox and stuff, that like I was going to have to constantly fight that feeling of like, I'm not pretty enough or I'm not enough, just like the way my body is. Because in Boston, nobody cares. Like you go to the store with wet hair, no makeup, and your LL Bean boots on, and you are fine. Like no one even does a double take, right? And I've tried to carry that here. And what I realize is that like, yeah, it's the billboards that you see. It's the TikTok that you see. It's, and just because there's more eyes on that doesn't mean it actually represents the population. I have so many wonderful friends, new friends that I've met here who are just like normal girls, just doing their normal thing. And also trying to fight that feeling of like, you know what, like I'm aging, but it's going to be okay.
Embrace the aging. I think that's something we've lost as a culture. It's
as a culture in general.
Yeah, just broadly.
Yeah.
It's good to age.
And I think for being in a place where there's so many LDS people in such a small area and like they've all grown up here, your heritage comes from all the same place, you start to try and find ways to stand out in the exact same way as everybody else. So it's like I want to look like you but prettier. Like I want to be exactly like you, but better. And there's not a lot of diversity here, which is something I do miss from Boston. And when I was watching your London episode and they were talking about everybody in the wards or the branches, I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing to me. Because I just feel like there's so much to be gained by being around people who think and look and speak differently than you. You really come to understand like the gospel is for everybody, and it helps you to kind of parse out like what is cultural and what is the actual gospel of Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah, thank you. Great point. Do we have any more favorite things about living in Utah?
Going off of that, I think it's such an important balance between being surrounded by people who are like-minded and being able to have this really solid support system that you can raise your children in, a support system that shares your values while also being able to expose them to different ideas, different people, different cultures. I think that's such an important balance to strike.
Yeah.
I think in Utah, because there might not be as much diversity, you have the benefit, which I do think is a benefit, to be surrounded by people who share your values. So that's the benefit, but then you have to make more of a conscious effort to find different cultures and different ideas to at the appropriate timing introduce your children to. Whereas maybe outside of Utah or outside the states, you have more of the diversity, which is a good thing. But then you might have to make more of an effort to find those pockets of people who share your values and make that more of a conscious effort. So I think that might be kind of the difference between living somewhere like Utah versus somewhere outside of Utah. The thing that you have access to versus the thing that you need to make more of a conscious effort to find might be different.
Well, it's interesting because even in the UK, I would say your ward reflects the demographics of your local area. But and so, you know, I'm lucky that the ward I'm in is relatively diverse in that way. But I'd say most wards still, you know, it's very much Britain is 90% white British.
Yeah.
And so it's only in those really metropolitan areas that you do get a sense of that, which is why London was so unique in that regard. So it's interesting. But then, you know, that's the great thing about going to conference, and you get to hear from members and leaders from all around the world and hear about how the gospel is really the same, but then you get the kind of cool cultural elements too that are different.
Yeah.
Now with the passing of President Nelson, I wanted to, before we get stuck into General Conference, I'd love to get from each of you kind of your biggest lesson that you've learned from President Nelson, the biggest takeaway that you reflect on from his time as prophet. Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah, no, I think just during COVID, when he came out with the learning at home and church from home, that just changed my life. Like, I'm even getting emotional thinking about it, but like just being able to teach your kids and having that home experience and doing the sacrament in a home in your living room, it was so cool. And the fact that he came out with the lesson and the shortened church and, you know, the lesson book from home is what I'm referring to there before all that happened, and just had such an emphasis on that. He was a remarkable man. He was definitely called at the right time. But yeah, I just, the way that he taught and the way that he, you know, went about his life, he was just an example of a man. I think I told you this story, but I ran into him like probably 3 months ago at the bottom of the church parking lot.
That photo that you have of it.
Yeah, I took it. I shouldn't have, but
I'll put it
up after. I took a video. We should put the video up because it's hilarious. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, I just met the president. I just met the prophet. I mean, like just like in a panic mode, and it was just that energy. Like I just asked him, like, hey, can I just take 10 seconds? And his helper guy was like, sure, 10 seconds. But he's a remarkable man. But yeah, the teaching from home, being able to teach my kids in that sense of like being a true leader of my home, but being Christ first, Christ centered, it was life-changing for me. So that's my biggest takeaway from him.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
I love that he was so human, and so he was so good at like picking up on what we were struggling with. I just remember during his Peacekeepers talk, we were down in St. George, where my family's from, and my wife and I driving in our car, and at the very end of the talk, we had pulled up to my parents' house, and we're like huddled around the radio, taking notes carefully because I wanted to post about it later. And just that line, it's not a line that like you see very often, but when he's talking about how we all need to be peacekeepers, and this is what it means to be a peacekeeper. And then at the end of that segment, he says something like, at this point, you're probably wondering, or you're probably hoping that someone else is listening to them, to this, and is going to start treating you better.
Yep.
And then he says,
everyone's like, yep. Me?
I remember that.
So he validates that side of it, but then he also says, I hope they do. Like, I hope that they are listening. But also, this applies to you too. So he's just so good at balancing the need for us to be better, the need for others to be better. And he was just very human in the way that he presented those ideas, and the slight humor that he added to things was so fun to see.
Nice.
He changed my life forever in 2018 by asking us to do the spiritual work necessary to receive more revelation. I mean, I hacked myself up in terms of if I was a bush, the current bush, you guys know that analogy?
Yeah, classic.
I let the Lord, prune me way back. And I actually got off of social media before I started doing my podcast and stuff. I was completely off, because I realized I was just so automatic in just filling my time, any empty space I had, with something else. And I was like, the YMCA Zumba class was like my life. All my friends would go to Zumba, and like,
awesome.
It was awesome. Like, cause we had a blast, and I loved it. And I realized that like the music that they were playing didn't align with like inviting the Spirit. Like it almost kind of was like a light turned on in my head, where I realized like what they were saying and what it meant, and that I was like participating in it by like dancing to it. And I stopped going, and I still would go to the gym, and I'd drop my kids off at the same time, and I'd walk past that room, and I'd hear them and the laughing, and I literally went up to the upstairs to run the treadmill and cried. It just seems so silly, but like I gave that up. Like I placed that on the altar for the Lord, and I have seen like amazing results. It's just opened my eyes to how much more even than like where I've got to now. I could still go past that, and that like our ultimate goal is to live our whole lives under the constant influence of the Holy Ghost. Like, wouldn't that be amazing? And so President Nelson sparked all of that, and I'm eternally grateful for him.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, President Nelson he was an amazing man. I mean, I think it's interesting what he did for the youth of the church, in the sense that President Monson, he really was he emphasized missions a lot. He was always pushing like missions, so important. He lowered the age that you could go out on a mission. And I think for a long time there was this period where the youth of the church felt like a mission was almost like a saving ordinance. And I think I don't think what President Monson was doing was negative, but I think the culture that got born from it was a little bit negative, in the sense that you have these kids thinking like, oh, if I don't go on a mission, like I'm done for, which is totally not true, right? And so I think President Nelson, on the other hand, he still emphasized missions and the importance, but I think he emphasized a lot on temples. And not only did he announced 200 temples in like 7.5 years, like incredible. But not only that, he also would talk so much about the importance of the temple and how essential it is in our lives. And I think it helped people start to realize like missions are great, but the temple is the place by which the gathering will be fulfilled, right? The temple is the place that we need to go. That's the saving ordinance that you need. And I think it was a good step in the right direction. Because as we go on and more wickedness comes up in the world, I think the more often we're in the temple, the better. It's the closest place we can be to God. And so I think it was a good 7 years of preparation as we go through these next years of wickedness around us. And yeah, I think the temple's beautiful, and I'm grateful that he had such an emphasis on that.
Thank you for sharing that. Although I'm sad they knocked down the Provo temple.
Really?
Ew.
Have you seen the rendering of the new one, or the new way it'll look?
Yeah, it looks like a lot of the other temples.
I know. I loved how unique it was.
It was
very like 80s and
Mid-century.
I
modern.
love that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna miss that. It'll still be beautiful, but
It will be.
yeah.
I will say I worked at the MTC for a little bit last year, and it was starting to go up while I worked there, so I'd see it every day. It is so big. It is like crazy. It's crazy. Because I remember the old Provo temple, and I'd been to it, and it was pretty big. It's still a big temple, but for some reason the new way they're building it looks very, very big.
I can't wait for that temple to be built, because our temple is the one where they ship all the missionaries and everybody from that area.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we can't get appointments for anything, which is another benefit of being in Utah, right? You're so close to
So many temples.
So many temples.
Yeah.
But now I'm annoyed because my husband's calling almost is to stay up late on the night before the month changes, midnight, go and book sessions for
That's
the
crazy.
baptisms for their youth.
That's like when
He's
I was
if
trying
you're
to
4
get
minutes
Oasis
late,
tickets.
yes, yeah, exactly. But for the temple, like they just sell out so fast. So
They're expensive.
That was
it's midnight oil. Yeah.
That was something my mum had some free time, and she was like, "Oh, I'll go to the temple," and she looks just like, "Nope."
Yeah.
Every single session.
Oh.
For me, with President Nelson, I was thinking, as you all shared so brilliantly, was there was a quote I shared on Instagram recently from him that I read years ago in Henry B. Eyring's biography, and I couldn't find it anywhere else. I was trying to remember it for an interview I was doing, and the only place I could find it on the whole internet was by going back to my Kindle and back to the page that it was on. And he gave an interview about Henry B. Eyring's mother, and in it he said, and I shared this on Let's Get Real, a powerful Latter-day Saint is a thinking Latter-day Saint, one who reasons well and synthesizes data well. And as I reflect this week, especially on President Nelson, what he did in the church and what inspired me was he was really good at that, like in intelligently and curiously looking at the scriptures and then actually applying and experimenting on what it said and living that way, which is so admirable. And it shows just how honorable and respectable he is. But then you saw that in his talks as well. They were all very much like, this has been said, therefore we need to do this, and he's going to put it across in a great way that helps us actually do that, like the gathering of Israel, like being a peacemaker, like thinking celestial, like real tangible things, but also delivering them with the power and motivation that makes us feel really inspired to take that next level up. And I really like that, because it reminds me of what I think Joseph Smith would have been like, in that when you see how so many things were uncovered in the Restoration and revealed, it was from Joseph Smith, again, intelligently and curiously looking at scripture, reasoning well with it, and then synthesizing the data that he's getting and really applying it. And then here we go.
Yeah.
John the Baptist comes down. You know what I mean? Like, that's the power of doing that. So I was really inspired by that, and it's made me look at the scriptures in a completely different way, where before President Nelson's time, I would read the scriptures, feel the Spirit, great. But now I look at them and I'm like, what do I take from this story and how do I try to do it? And then it's battling with myself to actually then go and do it, and seeing the blessings from doing that. So, I'll really fondly remember President Nelson's time as prophet. But of course, we've got President Oaks, not yet.
Not yet.
Coming
Not
soon.
yet. Not true.
It's not over till it's over.
It's not over to the
I had to teach the priests that. They're like, oh yeah, it has to be. I'm like, no, you don't know that.
Yeah.
You never know.
Not necessarily.
Things can change.
I thought that word that he shared during conference was so interesting. It was like an apostolic
Interregnum.
Yeah.
You have to say it with
With the like
Interregnum.
roll the R.
I mean, that
Bring
was
the
the first
Latin
time
out.
I'd ever heard of that. I thought that was so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know what it means, but we're in it.
Yeah, it was kind of sad actually for me watching General Conference and not having a prophet there. Did anybody else
weird.
feel that?
It was weird.
It was a
wasn't
little bit interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, not that any of the talk. I mean, and President Oaks's talk. We can get into this. I was so
Mind-blowing,
sweet
yeah.
to
Yeah.
see him at the end. That was amazing. But yeah, just like feeling like, oh, where's the prophet? You know, and it obviously like is not President Oaks yet, right? Like the mantle will come if when. Right, but
It's funny, isn't it? Because the tradition is so firm that it's like you just want
all-
to say,
yeah.
Well, and then
Yeah.
you were
it's like-
saying like putting people in the right place at the right time, and how a lot of leaders come from Utah. Like, and that's I think there's what's his church history podcast that.
Church History Matters.
Church History Matters. They've done actually
Great
a really
podcast.
good episode about this, about why it is the way it is and when it shifted to being this kind of structure of whoever is the president of the Quorum of the 12 is the next senior apostle, is the next prophet. Hasn't always been that way, but I just think that like God has put them in these orders, the story, Nelson, then Oaks, in that order.
yeah,
Called
yeah.
the same day.
Same
It
day.
had to be that order.
Yeah, and I'm sure lots of X or anti people could make up a bunch of reasons for why that's just a coincidence. But for me, it really feels like God. Yeah.
I certainly agree. let's dig into General Conference then. Well, firstly, does anyone have any fun conference traditions? You know, a lot of you have got families. What do you have any specific things you do to keep the kids' attention or do it? I know we used to have bowls of sweets or candy, as you'd say, attached to the words. So we'd be sat with our bag and listening out for words and talks and be like, yeah. And if there was a really rare word, then you'd have like a nice chocolate bar or something. Yeah. That was great. That's something I always remember. Thanks, Mum.
Interesting.
Anyone else?
We would always do bingo. So we'd have, I think they were usually in the Friend magazine or something. They'd have bingo cards of, if they mention XYZ, you put candy or something there. And then if you get bingo, you get to eat it. And then we'd always do breakfast, a big breakfast, usually Sunday morning. Kind of like Christmas. I don't know. It's just a fun way to.
It is. It's lovely, isn't
it? It feels like a holiday.
Does
it not feel like a holiday?
It does. I mean, everyone comes home. I guess like me and all my siblings were all grown now, and so we all come back to mom and dad's house, have a big breakfast. It does feel like a holiday.
It does.
Pajama party.
Yeah.
Not for us, no. We keep things pretty traditional though, but it was fun. Like with having 4 young kids, like trying to get them to watch conference is near impossible, right? Yeah. And so you obviously do the coloring pages, you do the bingo with candy, hear the words, right? But it was cool. My 9, almost 10-year-old, he actually understands, and he's like well beyond his years, but it was cool. Like I looked over at him on the couch during Oak's last remarks, and I was like, oh my gosh, he's really into this. Like, this is cool.
That's great.
And so, you know, nothing like outside of the regular traditions, but just that moment made me realize, like, all right, next April, we're figuring this out. This is cool.
It must be so cool as a parent to see, though.
It is cool. Like, man, especially my son, he's a better member than me, even at this point. He's remarkable.
Don't we hope that for the rising generation?
It's
honestly.
true. Yeah, he gets it from his mom, not from me. But he's remarkable, and so it's just fun to watch him like interact with kids at church. I think going back, not to go backwards, but my favorite thing about Utah is obviously the community too. But just if I pull up my LDS tools, every single house in my neighborhood is a member pretty much, right? And the fact that my kids have, you know, like-minded community that they can go back and talk about conference with, you know, 15, 20 peers. That's cool. That's what makes Utah really cool. So
yeah, I love that.
It definitely makes me really appreciate my parents being on the parent side of it now and trying to do conference with. We only have 2, but it's so hard to keep them entertained while so that you can listen. And my parents, I come from 8, and so I don't know how they did it. It definitely makes me appreciate them a lot more.
Well, and it's so worth it. Like, I think the reason why I have this instilled in me is because my parents did it, and they pushed through those years where, you know, we're just in and out and so loud that they can't even hear the talks and stuff like that. It's like going to church when you have an 18-month-old. Like, you're just walking the halls, or actually it's 16 months because they can't go to nursery yet. It's like those 2 horrible months. Oh, yes. But I think that's why I just feel like it's so important to like make a thing out of it. I think our kids often kind of push back against like the things that just naturally out of their development, like they just push back a little bit. And so if we hold this line of no, like we carve out time on Saturdays, even though it's a Saturday and you might have soccer or whatever, we carve out time because this is literally a prophet of God. God speaks to that guy, you know, like he is in charge of the like well-being of the whole world, and we're going to listen to him. I think that feeling will carry on in their hearts, hopefully, even no matter what their path looks like. That in the end, they'll feel it again, and it'll bring them back.
I got this time, my first ever time watching conference in person, and miracle after miracle, got tickets to every single session.
Really?
We got 10 hours of conference.
Wow. Has anybody ever done that in the history of ever?
I don't know. That's
the apostles don't even do that. None of them takes a break every once in a while.
Right. It was amazing. It was amazing. And I found it so much easier to kind of pay attention because it's on the screen. Yeah, on the screen, I'm like drifting in and out.
Sure.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And I end up watching some of it a bit later, whereas just sitting watching it all, it was just amazing atmosphere. I absolutely loved it. Tabernacle Choir's there. You're seeing everyone there. My eyesight's not that great, so I can see them, but couldn't see their like noses or anything. But it was just so cool. And I would love to get from each of you now, I would love to go around and hear about your favorite talk from conference, or you could do favorite talks if you couldn't decide one, but and why and what stood out to you from it. Let's dig in to the specific talks. Who wants to go first?
I have one. I mean, I love so many of them, but one that really stuck out to me because the words that he said is it was Elder Uchtdorf's. I mean, talked about planes again. It's a classic. Gotta love that.
Class.
But there was a specific quote that he said that really hit me pretty hard, and it said, "The fire of yesterday's testimony can only keep you warm for so long." I thought that was really interesting. Like coming home from a mission, you're on a really big spiritual high and everything is exciting about the church and you just want to go. And then, of course, as you slowly get back into your normal life, it doesn't necessarily fade, but it's different, right? It's definitely different. And so for me, it was a good moment of reflection, like the fire of yesterday's testimony. Is it still lit? Is it still keeping me warm? And what am I doing to make sure that fire doesn't go out? What am I doing to make sure that the fire of today's testimony is still ablaze? So I thought that was a really interesting quote that Elder Uchtdorf said. I think it's really important for just members of the church throughout the world, just like reflect for a second. Am I doing what I need to make sure my testimony's fire is going? So
Well, and it's a desire thing, because out of all the people I've ever interviewed on my podcast, and I actually also did a short series of people who had left, and I didn't ask them why they left. I asked them, like, what was it like, and how can a member support somebody like you going through something like this? And it was actually really illuminating, and from Instagram comments and YouTube comments that I get to work through, I really think that there's enough evidence on both sides to say, like, this is real or this is fake. Like, I think there's a good case to be made on both sides. Not that I'm saying I agree with the fake part of it, but it comes down to desire. And are we doing these things because we want to? Because we want to believe? That's really the very basis of it. And so, yeah, that really stood out to me as well.
That was like Elder Brown's talk.
I was wondering if anyone was going to bring him up. He was so good.
All the clips have been circulating of his, and because of just the passion that he had in delivering his talk, which I really loved. But even just the message itself that he gave was so good, and he talked about that idea about how belief does come down to a choice. Like I have a handful of experiences that I could point to in my life of real tangible experiences with God or with the Spirit that really shore me up in those moments of doubt. But it does still come down to choice. He mentioned kind of I don't think he said this verbatim, but he was kind of explaining the difference between moral agency and free agency. We kind of confuse the two sometimes.
Yeah.
Where free agency is just the ability to choose, but moral agency is the agency or the agency that we have to choose good things, is kind of how he put it. And it really does come down to that choice. And that's how I frame it in my mind, because I'm sometimes a very practical person, and belief or sort of the metaphysical is sometimes difficult for me. But understanding it that way, recognizing that I can choose to believe this, and then through that choice, I'm going to have more and more experiences with the divine that are going to help shore up my testimony and convince me because of those experiences that I often can't explain any other way than dealings with the divine, just because they're so powerful. That's how I can frame it in my mind to help me through those moments of doubt. So I really liked his talk and how he framed agency and choice and belief.
It's interesting because Elder Bednar touched on that same point as well, didn't he? The moral agency. I think, if I remember correctly.
I think I missed that one.
There are a few mentions of it, which is just, that specific kind of moral agency is not just like, oh, you're free to do what you want, but it's like the ability to choose the right. So that was something that stood out to me from the whole conference. Yeah.
I mean, I think we live in a time where truth is really blurry. Like President Nelson often talked about how there is absolute truth. There is just truth, and it's not my truth or your truth or whatever, right? There's eternal truth. And we live in a world where truth is extremely blurry. Things are getting said in a way that anyone could take it any which way. And so it's a reminder that, like, in this world where truth is confusing and hard to pick out, we have moral agency, and we have the ability to choose what is true and what is right, and what are we going to do about it. So I think it's very appropriate for the current state of affairs that we're living in.
Yeah.
Oh, hugely.
I kind of see it as that, like, truth is a third party that we can observe and we can recognize or we can discover, but we can't shape or we can't change for ourselves. It's something we can know, but we can't shift or we can't change.
Yeah, I like that.
And I think it's all coming back to the desire. You have to want to know the truth, and keep yourself in a place that you can know it. Something I have also realized is that when we are in a chaos state, we are not able to receive revelation, or it gets scrambled, or Satan comes in and is better able to deceive us in thinking we're receiving revelation. And if we start watching like the way we consume media or news articles, or the way that we're interacting with our neighbors, our family members, when contention enters in, or if we're going to sources that are full of contention or darkness or whatever, we put ourselves in a chaos state, and the Spirit can't help us there. It was somebody who was it? Oh, somebody in conference, maybe just cut this out. I can't remember. I don't have my notes. But just being able to keep ourselves in a state of calm, that like we will be able to receive that and find the truth if we can keep ourselves in a peace state. Yeah.
Yeah, love that. Brett, did you have a favorite talk?
Yeah, I was curious who the first speaker was going to be on Saturday, because I don't really feel for them, or I do feel for them. I guess I'd say. It was like I wouldn't want to be them, is the best way to put it, especially after what's gone on in the world.
Yeah.
A few weeks before, and then obviously the prophet dying, and then Michigan. I just wasn't sure, like, who are they going to put out there and what. And Elder Stevenson did a remarkable job. That Peacemaker talk and his challenge to all of us. It was definitely divine that he was the first speaker. And it touched my heart. Like it's so easy to build up hate, for things that happen, or, hate for the guy that caused something, or right. It's like at the end of the day, what would Christ do? And keeping that peace and being that peacemaker and peacekeeper, like President Nelson was such a big advocate for. It's the way to go. And like he challenged, bring it into our hearts first, and then to our homes, and then to our communities. And I just felt like you try to figure out, like, okay, how can I solve this, right? And it's like, you can't solve it, right? But that's really how you do it. It's like, first change your heart, then change your house, and then see what happens in your community, and just go from there. And I thought it was very, very divine that he was the first speaker. And I loved everything about his message.
I was going to say the same talk for my favorite. Because, again, it was just like, you sat there for conference, you don't really know what's going to happen because of everything that's gone on, and then you get that talk. I don't think there could have been a more suitable talk, and it was a challenge. It was a challenging one to hear as well, because it right at the start of conference, you're just brought straight up to Jesus, and like reminder, out of all of the mud and stuff in the world, it's just he cut right to the heart of it straight away, and I was so inspired. And the whole conference, I just kept coming back to Elder Stevenson's talk on that, and just that's what I need to do.
And it's a beautiful reminder to how well God knows us, because the speakers and everything for General Conference has been planned for weeks, months, right? It's been a long, ongoing process. It's not like it was just 5 days ago. They're like, oh, Elder Stevenson, you give a talk, right? Like it's been well planned. Yeah. And I'm sure Elder Stevenson had that talk prepared a long time before a lot of the recent events. And so I think it's just beautiful to see how God is working through his called servants, through his apostles to give us the most important message we need at this specific time.
And modern society is so tribalist as well that like to hear him say, be nice to someone even if they're really not nice to you, or just like forgive them even if it's unfair, that we know that Jesus said those things, but today it's so foreign.
It is.
It's like I don't know. It's still revolutionary today. It's still revolutionary.
Well, I think we lived in a time, like we read the pioneer story and their persecutions that they had to go through. And it's kind of, for our chunk of lives, we're all about the same age. We've lived in kind of, a peaceful place. In the U.S. specifically, hopefully you've experienced peace in the UK and not ever been driven out of your home because of your religion. But for this space of time from pioneers to now, we've lived in pretty much a civilized world where people are kind of mad at each other and sometimes hate crimes happen, but it's very rare and far between. And we're just seeing that escalate. And so what it is it's revolutionary because we're coming back to that. We're coming back to the pioneer heritage. We're coming back to the early disciples of Jesus Christ being murdered, and stoned because of what they believe and what they're teaching. And that's really sobering, but the peacekeeping is needed more than ever, because when you were bringing up the shootings and things that happened, what did Jesus Christ do when he was on the cross? Literally, he forgave them right as they were murdering him. He said, forgive them. He loved his murderers. And he calls us to do the same. And it becomes suddenly clear. It's super difficult, but it becomes suddenly clear about what we have to do and how we have to behave. And I think for Christians, we need to remember that the ends never justify the means. In the way that, when we preach the gospel, we need to do it in a way that Christ would do it. And he set the perfect example. We might say he flipped tables once, but I think that none of us can justify flipping tables ever because we're not him. Right? The majority of his life was just constant love and understanding and kind rebuking and if it's needed. But I think we just got to err on the side of love and never, ever try and push our Christian beliefs in a way that is not Christ-like.
I think it's an important thing that you say. And we're sat here as members in kind of Western society. Right. And I think it's fascinating to take a moment and ponder what people in other situations, how they're hearing these talks too, because they're universally applicable, right? Everything it is. But then you think of, I served in a country on my mission that was under Sharia law. So the church is listed as a limited business there because it can't operate as a religion. So it's a business, and the chapels are in office blocks, and it's so hard to get a chapel working. And so you look at the kind of oppression from government, say, that some experience, and you say, how do these talks that we're hearing, how is that being translated to them and the task that they're under now? And then you think about Russia and the war going there, and how the government in Russia have blacklisted BYU and put them on the watch list as a kind of organization that is against their ideology. And you think, look at the Russian members hearing these talks. Where else? There are several people I've interviewed before that are in countries where I know people who have had to flee their country because it was unsafe to practice their faith in that country. And you think, what are they getting from those talks? The things that people around the world are being called to do is inspiring, and it's amazing and encouraging to see them live out their faith. And for us, in the West, we focus on these big things like Michigan, of course, which is huge. But I just find it fascinating to think these are the things that we're taking from it. And there's so many people around the world. Look at what's happening in Nigeria to Christians. 500,000 Christians murdered? And they're getting this as well. So it's just those worldwide messages, they're actually such inspiring calls to action that are, as I said before, still revolutionary in our times from Christ.
Well, that was actually my favorite talk that I was going to bring up is Elder Godoy. He said that he was made over the Africa South area. And so he was just talking about the saints and the things that they would go through just to get to church. He listed so many people and like the big pressure that they're under to try and, get these congregations together or fit in these buildings. And it just made me think, like, they are going to such great lengths to have the gospel in their lives. And, sometimes it's hard for me to open the gospel library app and have like a good scripture study session in a day, right? My building's 3 minutes away from me. Like
that must be nice.
and it is, but what it does is it invites laziness into my gospel living. Mm-hmm. And I when he gave that talk, it made me think, if I think my life would be easier without a calling, without daily scripture study, without having to do A, B, and C things that are required us from the gospel, then my life is too easy. If we think that those things are a burden on us and we'd be better off like walking away and like getting rid of that weight, it means that our modern lives are too easy.
I was just talking about this morning, and I only tell this story because it starts with, I was at the gym, and so I just so I can brag about that. Just kidding. I wasn't actually at the gym. I was at our home gym. My wife and I was talking, and ever since, because I used to go to the gym, but ever since having more of like a home gym, just in our very makeshift, like in our basement, it's almost harder to get down there to work out, because it's before I would just have to make the effort to get to the gym, and then once I'm there, there's people there, and I can be motivated, and it's fine. But now that it's at my house and it's so much easier, I kind of have to motivate myself the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of very true. Like we have temples. How many temples do we have within 20 minutes of us? And how often do we go to the temple? Versus those who may live somewhere where Sharia law is enforced and they might not have a temple, or their temple is hours and hours away. How much?
Or they die on the way to the temple,
Yeah.
or meeting up with. That was
So sad.
Yeah.
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 No, you're good. And it's just this sobering reminder of the need to not let the ease of access deter us from remembering how important it is to participate in all of these things that we so easily take for granted. It's just like Christofferson in his talk, where he talked about how the easier it is to access scripture, the more scriptural illiteracy we find. It's just the easier things get, the easier it is to take it for granted. And I think we should really look into ourselves and push back against that, because it is important, and it's easy to take things for granted.
We live in a zero-sum cost world, which is really dangerous. We're specifically dealing with the problems of abundance rather than scarcity.
Yeah.
And it's like
Which always, like, why do we have the Book of Mormon? It's because it shows us like what happens when we are like in the constant pursuit of
when we
ease.
become too indulgent and convenient.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's fascinating when you think about it. And it leads us on nicely to, I obviously want to touch on President Oaks' talk, which he delivered as president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, but it was still very prophetic.
Impactful. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Am I allowed to say that? They were all prophets. Yeah, I would love to hear your reflections on his talk and what you take away from it, because it was quite stark. I'm a new dad. I've got a 6-month-old, and
Congrats.
Yeah.
thank you. Just thinking about what it told, that quote that he said, where you can't just turn on family relationships when you turn off technological devices. It's just like, yeah, and it's true. It's true, I think, of growing up without those devices and all of the wonderful family things that we did. And I'm like, that actually, yeah, I look at my screen time, and sometimes I'm shocked where if I have a busy day in particular and several hours shows up, and I'm like, where did all that time go?
Right.
And it's just, that's time that was taken away from what we would have used to have been doing, which is, being bored or studying or talking with family, just sitting down and talking or reading. And it's just, yeah, it was a really good clarion call for me to say, yeah, I'm going to take President Oaks' talk really seriously and kind of use that as my roadmap for the next 6 months until the next conference, but beyond as well.
I loved how much he emphasized the importance of traditions. He like made a point to emphasize that, because I think sometimes this is just a weird quirk that I have. I sometimes feel guilty for spending too much time like involving myself or trying to cultivate traditions in my family. Not specifically.
Can I have you come to my house and do that for me? I can hire you for that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm expensive, but I don't know. It was kind of like reassurance for me that traditions, spending time cultivating a family culture is something worthwhile and actually essential for your family. And so that was something that really stuck out to me with President Oaks. I love seeing a different side of him. Just seeing him share that story of his grandfather who passed away?
Yeah. His dad passed away when he was...
And his grandfather
took over.
Essentially became his father, yeah.
I'll be your father.
Just seeing that other side of him was really, really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was unique to see the emotional side of him. Like, obviously he's shown it before, and I'm sure you could find talks, but just from my like recent memory, I'm like, Oaks has been by the book, court man, judge. And so it was cool to see like that emotional side. I do think it was cool. I mean, I don't know. President Nelson probably turned over in his grave when they announced the no temples. But I will point out the transparency there was pretty cool. He didn't need to say like this portion was written and not approved by President Nelson. And then, hey, now this is. It was just a weird thing that to me that I'm like, they could have easily taken that out. But I think it was like a respect thing. Like, this isn't necessarily the plan, but this is the plan going forward. I just thought it was really cool. And it was cool that he I think gave that respect in a way that probably most religions or leaders would have tried to go way around it and hide it from their members, or this is the plan all along, I felt like it was really cool. So
you feel in safe hands when President, like you could expect from such a big organization that there might be some ambition or ego involved, but
sure.
Like what would conference have looked like if that was present? We would have had the solemn assembly, like quick, and we would have had all these maybe changes to come in and usher in straight away. But there wasn't that. It was conference.
Yeah.
And I think the most respectful way and a sign of President Oaks' character is that it was conference. We're all thinking, what's going to happen? But it was general conference, and it was a brilliant general conference.
I also liked that he made it clear that it wasn't his decision, because now that President Nelson has passed away, immediately it's the entire quorum of the 12 that runs the church, not just President Oaks. He merely guides the quorum as a whole, but it's the quorum as a whole that makes decisions until there is a new prophet called. And so I like how he said it has been approved by the entire quorum of the 12 apostles that we won't have any temples for the time being. I thought that was beautiful. And I agree. Like, I think about how egotistical the world is. If it was some other organization, I could easily see a new person just instantly saying like
millions watching.
Yeah,
millions.
I'm the prophet.
Yeah.
And it's like, look how amazing I am and all these changes I'm gonna do. Like I couldn't do it before because I wasn't in charge, but now that I am, like all these changes. But no, it was exactly the way it should have been. So
I imagine the. Like when you watch NASA stuff and you've got the Houston control room.
Yeah.
I imagine that as like the temple department. All like,
all of them standing up from behind their computers, like
clapping. What a brilliant
We're all going to take a break.
Put in so much work.
It's interesting that you guys bring that up, because my feeling of why he said that, and I could be totally off, but I really felt that like there is this like social media vibe of like President Oaks being the family proclamation loser dude who like has to keep hounding on this old annoying document that like is not updated anymore. Like there is this feeling of like hatred towards him specifically for standing up for the family proclamation. Sure. And he said those things like this I did afterwards, and my following remarks have been planned before, in a way of just like, I was going to say this whether I was about to become the prophet or not.
Yeah.
Not like, and and kind of like, and I mean, you and in your social media platform, you probably feel the same heat and anger that he gets. But he was just kind of like, this is what I felt inspired to say. And if this is kind of my almost first talk as prophet, and this is what I'm going to be known for afterwards, like, so be it. You know, the fiery darts are just coming anyway. So that's it kind of felt like a solemn, like, you know, I'm sorry, but I have to stand up for this.
Sorry, not sorry.
Sorry, not sorry.
I think they passed Raz Band Oaks' talk.
That's on my list.
Good,
That's actually, yeah.
He did great though. Like, I mean, don't want to get into anything, but like there has been a lot of questions like what is doctrine and not, and I do love when they just come out and just like tell us black and white what it is.
Isn't it
cool.
so like
Thank you.
like relieving?
Yeah.
I would totally rather it be like, that's why I will always follow the prophets over like what I specifically believe. To have that responsibility of like knowing truth passed off onto somebody else. Thank you.
Yeah. It's one of the most frustrating. I shouldn't say that. One of the teachings that I am sometimes frustrated with is let them teach doctrine and then let them govern themselves. Sometimes because not because I'm like authoritarian or anything like that, but I think you are. Okay. Thanks for coming out as something. But just because that does leave room for like wiggle room and making things gray, but it is actually a really beautiful doctrine when it comes down to it, because their job is to teach doctrine, and they do very clearly. And when things become gray, like you were saying earlier, I think most of the time, or probably all of the time, it's our fault as members of the church. It's not that our leaders are teaching things that make it like they're not teaching things in a wishy-washy way. They're being very clear, but the way that we interpret things, the way that the conversations that we have, obscure things and make it seem like things aren't doctrine when they actually are, or make it seem like they haven't been clear about the family proclamation being doctrine and being prophetic when they actually have many, many times. So I think the onus is on us as Latter-day Saint, like as the membership of the church. I think they've been very clear. With all that said, I did really love Elder Runland's talk and just how clear it was, and reinforcing the importance of the family and how central it is to everything. And I loved how much that was a theme throughout the entire conference, being the 30th anniversary of the document. So I definitely had a lot of notes about that.
I loved how I think it was him that said it. Elder Razband started saying like, "This is your thing now." Was he the one that said that at the start of his talk? Saying,
what did he say?
It says Council of the 12 Apostles on the proclamation, and he says just because your name isn't like on the signature part of it, it's like this is your document now. You're a steward of it.
I like when a president is coming in, and they could, like a U.S. president is coming in, they could envision their name signed on the Constitution. That same idea. I think that was really cool.
And it segues us into, well, before we conclude, I want to give some honorable mentions too, is Elder Holland's talk.
Oh,
beautiful. On my list as well.
What a sweetie.
Yeah, I think that was one of the most powerful experiences of my life, to be in the conference center.
Oh,
and
you were there.
Sing Amazing Grace at the end of his talk and bear witness. And as he was speaking, I knew just before that session, the public affairs officer in England had come up to me, and we're friends, and I was asking what he was doing. I said, yeah, we've brought 2 politicians over from the House of Lords and Parliament to come and see. And so all that conference, I was thinking like, oh, I wonder what they're thinking. And then Elder Holland comes up and he says, you can take my opinion with some respect. I think I've earned some respect, and gives it. And I just thought how powerful. But to hear him finish his talk like that, I was just,
oh man,
I don't think there was a dry eye in the whole room. It was just so powerful that we have such a deep love for him.
The history of that song, Amazing Grace, and like how important it was in the ending of this, like abolishing slavery in England and things like that too. It's a really cool movie if you ever want to watch Amazing Grace. But
I've seen it. It's really good.
Yeah,
I think I've watched that.
Yeah.
I tweeted something like, "Wow, that was quite the stunt to pull Elder Holland right when I'm sitting next to my wife. I had her convinced I was a Stoic, just because we had pulled up in front of my my in-laws' house right at the end of that talk, and he started, and I was about to turn it off, and I was like, wait a minute, what is he doing?" And I realized that he was singing, and it was a special moment.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool that several of the 70s gave talks that I think were very niche in a way where, especially I'm currently serving in Elders Quorum, and thought there's several talks there that are really meaty in that I can take that away and really think about how I can apply that rather than, something more vague and or testimony focused, which is great as well. But I just thought there were several that were like, yeah, that's actually a really good point. And it's different to the other feelings of some of the talks. So that was helpful too. But yeah, my honorable mentions, we've all discussed Elder Stevenson, Elder Rasband, Elder Kevin Brown with his fiery passion, Elder Carlos Godoy, President Oaks as well. So many amazing things. And I guess as we close, I'd love to hear from all of you and think, what are you doing moving forwards now? What are you going to take away from conference as a whole and move forward with?
I'll just go back to Elder Brown's talk. He made a comment in there, or just a few comments, I think, about how urgent this is, about how this is the last dispensation, taking charge of our testimony. It's an urgent thing, and it's something we need to take responsibility for. My wife Amanda and I have had a lot of conversations recently about how we've felt that, especially, just yesterday we were talking about how there seems to be kind of a religious revival in the U.S. right now with the younger generation. With everything that's going on, I think, and then there's a lot of popular Christian artists that are coming out, a lot of things that are kind of converging and really bringing people back to God. And I think you're seeing that in the Latter-day Saint community as well. But moving forward in this conference, I have just really felt that, and I know my wife has, and we just feel this newfound desire to take charge of our testimony and to stop coasting. I've kind of felt like I've been coasting in some ways, but really take things seriously and do those things that I grew up learning about, but have maybe put by the wayside, and spend less time on technology, all of those things. I want to just stop coasting and take charge of it and realize how urgent this is.
I found, based on what you were saying, recent research by Barna found a 12-point rise in the percentage of U.S. adults who say they have made a personal commitment to Jesus Christ that is still important in their life today, rising from 54% in 2021 to 66% in 2025.
Wow.
This has been driven again by younger people, with Gen Z men showing an increase in 15 percentage points between 2019 and 2025, and millennial men one of 19 percentage points.
Awesome.
So,
wow.
I love stats.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Way to bring in the stats there.
Yeah, I had to, but thank you.
I think that's perfect leeway to mine. Mine's youth. Obviously, I talked about the priests and whatnot. I think there were 3 talks that were like actually dedicated to the youth. Elder Stevenson's, I actually think was, I don't know if he thought of it this way, but I like re-listening. I'm like, I think he was actually speaking to the youth. And then Christofferson, and then I'm gonna mess up her name, sister.
Spannaus? Is that? I don't know how you spell.
Yeah, I don't.
Spannaus.
Yeah, Spanish. Yeah. Her talk, and she strictly said this is for the youth.
Yeah.
It was so impactful, and I just, after hearing those 3 talks, I'm like, one, I just want all these youth, LDS or not, to listen to these, because that's what's nice about like the rise of podcasting and public speakers. Like I realized this conference, like this is just like a podcast. Like I could just turn this on any day, anytime, get inspiration. I don't know if talks have gone more towards that recently or if it's always been that way and I'm just, waking up to it. But I think that for the youth, like all those 3 talks, if I could just implant those in the youth's head right now, like, it's such a hard world for them, like everywhere, not just in the Western, everywhere in the world. Our youth are struggling and don't know where to go, have nowhere to turn. The upper generations, we haven't helped them. And so I really just want to take these conference talks and figure out how I can get them into the youth's hands more. That's it.
Love that.
And by the way, they are up on Gospel Library as of this recording. It's just
The written one? The written ones or just the videos?
The videos, and it's the full section. And then I think they go through and cut them up.
Yeah.
But you can still go back and listen.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I think for me, just echoing off Elder Stevenson's talk, I love the whole analogy of your heart and then your home and then the community. I think that is just a beautiful way of going about things. And so I think like all the wonderful things we've talked about today, just doing my best to strengthen my own heart first, do what I can to make my heart more pure, more centered in Jesus Christ. And then from there, I can do it in my own home with my wife. And then from there, we can do our best to spread it around our friends and our family, our community, our ward, right? But I think there's a bit of humility in focusing on your own heart first. I think that's why Elder Stevenson said it that way. Like, you need to humble yourself first. Be humble, focus on your own heart. And then from there, and only there, you can be in a position to influence others around you. If your heart is hard and you're prideful and you think that you're so much better than everyone else, it's not going to come across the way it should. It's not going to drive home in your home and your community. So I think just always reflecting and humbling myself and trying to purify my heart.
Love that. Thank you.
For me, we didn't mention her, but Sister Tracy Browning, her talk reminded me of the primary songs that I've learned growing up. And I took a moment in my conference journal to write down like what truths I kind of have always just thought were a natural part of like maybe my spiritual gifts from the premortal life or whatever that I just kind of always have known. And I realized I can connect them to some of my favorite primary songs, the ones that I just sing when I have a bad thought or I'm having a hard day. My life is a gift. My life has a plan. Or like,
sing it in aspiration.
In aspiration is my Eye of Faith song.
Exasperation, that's what I mean.
Yeah, aspiration and exasperation. But really recognizing what I'm going to go forward and do is we kind of sing the same songs in our family over and over and over again, and these primary songs, and I want to expand. Like, I want to give my kids a whole library of songs that they could fall back on and hopefully weave those truths into their hearts so that maybe they don't ever know that they actually came from that primary song, but that they will carry them throughout their lives and be there for them when maybe I can't.
Thank you. That was such a beautiful talk as well.
Yeah.
Cool one to follow Elder Stevenson's too. Like, you come with all of these heavy concerns and worries with conference, and then you hit with forgive people more even if they hate you, and sing some primary songs and remember the precious doctrine thought in them. I'm like, yeah, okay.
I can do that.
Yeah,
I can do
that. Well, thank you all so much for joining me on the For All the Saints podcast.
Thank you.
It's been my privilege and honor, and just great to spend some time reflecting on conference and what we took away from it. Really special conference, and thank you at home for watching and listening. And
shout out to Ben.
Shout out to Ben.
Hey, keep doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Keep doing this.
It's been great.
Cool.
Trying.
It's amazing.
But thank you, and keep watching all of the other episodes as well, coming up as well. Thank you. Thanks for watching For All the Saints. This show needs your help to grow. Please like the video, comment your thoughts, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone you think would enjoy it. Thank you.